be ideally a touch point where we can check in with folks that are available. But my hope is that the work group can generate things that we can then put out to the council to get input on, or put out to stakeholders as well. So it's really just more of a checkpoint in the work and not the only place where the work happens. So if we have whoever we have today is great, and if we don't have very many folks from council, that's okay too. We'll just kind of continue to do it, and it just kind of gives us a place where we can bring things back to the table regularly, and let everyone know where we're at.
Cord, I'm going to interrupt just to mention that I did start recording since you started addressing it.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll hey Maricela, and hi Annalise, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we're recording the meeting. We actually are waiting on an opinion on whether these are public meetings or not, but we're going to record it, and we're probably just going to record all of them, just since we know folks may not be able to attend all of them. And then once we know for sure whether we need to also post them and invite everyone to come and watch us, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll just record them. And all the materials, of course, we'll make public as well. Melissa, did you fix the date in the slide deck? I just realized I've been putting the wrong date all day long.
I've been doing the same thing since we have our staff meeting tomorrow.
Great. We'll wait maybe one more minute, and at 12:05 we can just get rolling, and then as folks join, we'll catch everyone up. Thanks to everybody who's able to join us today. At least maybe initially, Melissa, we can maybe do the slideshow, and then if there's a point where when we get to discussion, maybe we can kind of pull it down, and then we can also share the link to the slides so you can have access to that. I can do that right now.
I've put it in
the chat?
PowerPoint. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, I just want to check to make sure, like what Brian just put in there, can everyone access it okay? Is that link working? Fantastic. Thanks all. Now I'm just reminding myself where the share is on here since we're not in Teams.
Actually, I'm doing a quick flip of slides too, so we'll actually talk about the work group structure before we do introductions, just so everybody kind of knows what we're doing. I figure that might be helpful. Great. Well, hey, I'm Cord Bucher. Thanks for joining. The meeting is being recorded. I noted for a few folks that we're still waiting on an opinion on whether these meetings would constitute public meetings, but we are going to record it. We'll be posting everything, and then once we know for sure if it is in fact something, we will also be inviting the public to watch. We'll do that, but for now we're just going to be recording this one. And you can see the agenda on the screen. So today we've got just an hour. We're going to talk about what this work group is. Like to hear a little bit from each of you, why you're who you are, why you're here, what you hope to get out of this, and just learn about your experiences with strategic planning a little bit. The first thing that we want to do with the work group is what we're going to talk about today, which is prioritizing all of the ideas that were generated in our retreat in the fall. We've shared some things out with the council. We've got a lot there, and we think the next step towards a strategic plan is to begin to really narrow the funnel a bit in terms of where to start in building a plan from that stuff. And then we'll talk at the end just about what's going to happen in the next work group meetings, what you can expect, and how we're going to share out the work of this group to the folks who aren't able to attend or participate on a regular basis. Can we go to the next slide? Oh, sorry, Melissa. I'm in the version, I think I'm in a version that I've edited, but can you go to the next slide then? I flipped them around, but maybe we have different ones. So I'm going to talk just really quickly about what the work group is, and then we'll actually go back and do introductions. So this is different from our council committees in that it doesn't have a regular committee structure. There's not a membership for this. There's not a chair for this. Work groups are, something we have that allows staff to lead some work where staff and council and others who are not on the council, stakeholders, partners, come together and work on a project. In this case, we're going to be working on our strategic plan development. The idea is for this meeting to happen every 2 weeks or so and be a recurring touch point for everybody to connect on this work. We want to identify opportunities for the people who can't participate in these meetings to contribute. So part of what I hope to do is to put together things that we can then share with council members and stakeholders who are not necessarily here. That we really probably can only do a limited amount of work in an hour every 2 weeks. But this is really a place to come back and talk about the progress, to discuss what kinds of feedback we're getting, if we're doing surveys or other ways of gathering input from folks. And this is actually the first work group that we've done, as far as I know. We had a strategic planning subcommittee back when we did our plan 3 years ago, which was a little bit different. So we're kind of trying something new here, and hopefully it can evolve and we can kind of come up with some responsive approaches that keep things going. This is an experiment to an extent, but we've got some ideas about how we can really get this plan moving forward and achieve our goals. I will talk about those goals in a bit, but maybe we should go ahead and jump back and do some introductions of folks that are here. So what we'd like to do is go around just quickly, find out who everyone is. Just say if you've been involved in this work already, what your familiarity with our strategic plan is. If this is your first time really talking about it, it would be good to know. We'd love to know what you hope to get out of or contribute to our strategic planning work. Is there something you're really interested in or passionate about making sure is included in that plan? And then kind of a bonus question, have you been part of strategic planning before? And if so, what was the best part of the process? I mean, what did you like most about strategic planning work? Because we'd love to know and perhaps duplicate that experience. With that, I will quickly introduce myself and model it, and then I'm going to pass it to someone else. So I'm Cord Bucher. I'm the Deputy Director here at Youth Development. I am familiar with our work pretty intimately. I hope to really, my hope for this particular work group is that we find a way to really bring in more collective involvement in developing a plan, to have it be something that really engages our council members, engages our partners, and gives you an opportunity to see what we're doing and have input and help guide us. And then I have participated in strategic planning before. I had my first experience really getting involved in it with our YDO plan back in our development. It was the council and division back in 2021. Youth Development Oregon is actually one of the results of that plan. I think the best part of that process really was the sifting. I actually really enjoyed just how much stuff we got, but then just like trying to start to find the nuggets and really find the things that were resonating with people that that we wanted to really elevate and build our plan around was pretty exciting. And seeing in particular like the way that strategies formed was really rewarding. And with that, I'm going to pass it to, I'm going to actually go back and look here at the list of folks that are here in the meeting. and we can maybe take the slide down
Okay, that was my
so
question.
everybody can see each other, and we can put the questions in the chat. And I'm going to pass it. Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Annalise.
Thanks, Cord. I'm Annalise Self. I'm the director of the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. I just started in this position last summer. So partnering with YDO has been a really new experience. We actually have a quarterly state agency meeting later today. So I'll get to see Brian again, which is really great. I also have here with me Wes Rivers, who's a new senior policy analyst with us, and I'll let Wes introduce himself. But we're both here today so that we can figure out who it makes sense to work with folks going forward. And Wes is going to be focused on youth and primary prevention. And so new to the YDO strategic plan process, we are also gearing up the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. Obviously, we just have this whole line of substance use disorder that connects to your work. But we have a current 20 to 25 strategic plan. It's a little different because it's for us and all the state agencies. And then we're going to be developing 2026. So like this is absolutely perfect. And with the System of Care Advisory Council, we're doing a specific youth strategic plan portion that can align with this work as well. So that's familiarity. What do we hope to get out of this is alignment and aligned strategies and outcomes going forward. So not surprisingly, what I will say about strategic planning, and folks will continue to hear this from me for years to come. I love measurable outcomes and defined strategies. That's just, it's like a symphony to me, my favorite part. And do you want me to pass it, Cord, or are you going to hang on?
Oh yeah, please. You just pick someone else.
I'll pass it to Wes so you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Wes Rivers. I use he, him pronouns. I am a senior policy advisor with Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission, focusing on youth and prevention. Annalise, so this is my first meeting, so I'm not very familiar, but Annalise answered kind of what I'm hoping to get out and contribute to. I've participated in a lot of strategic planning in my time. I was at 8 years with OHA, doing mostly youth work. My favorite part is direct community and youth engagement. I think so I think this is why Annalise and I make a good team. She's very strategic about the measures and measurable progress. I'm about shared values and creating a shared sense, a common sense of direction to feed into those measurable pieces. So yeah, that's me.
Actually, what I can do to make it easier, I feel like popcorn thing can be kind of stressful, especially for the last person and you're like, who hasn't gone? I'll put in some names. I'll do like 3 names at a time. So I'm going to tell the next 3 people who's coming up. I'm going to go ahead and ask Brian to do his intro. I'll do Brian, Parasa, and Andy because they're all in a row.
So I'll go and then Parsa and then Andy. Thanks, Cord, and thanks everybody for being here. Like, it is kind of a little bit of a, I'll say, dream come true, but it's actually a goal realized. Is that in our last plan, we were particularly, one of the strategies was just around partnership and alignment. And so to have Wes and Annalise here and Bethany and Juliet, right, all examples of folks who are kind of in that partner stakeholder role. We've got some council members here too who will get to introduce themselves, so I didn't purposely leave them out. But I think, you know, the thing that we want to I want to contribute or get out of this is, right, that we're a youth development Oregon, the division part, our staff is 13, 14 people. We've got a council of, 20 plus folks, some of whom are able to be here. But we're small. We like to consider ourselves small and mighty. We're, I think, going to be as powerful and impactful as the sort of partners and stakeholders around the table. We know that work needs to be aligned and there needs to be synergy. I think that's what will drive real impact and sustainable change or even transformational change. So yeah, thanks for being here. What else do I need to? Yeah, I'm Brian Detman, Director of Youth Development, Oregon. Was involved with the finishing of our plan 3 or so years ago, and I feel like it set us on a good course. And yeah, the best part, oof, so many things. I mean, I think to the extent that we can bring, and it's hard to achieve, but to bring some level of like ownership of the plan to like key stakeholders. I think our plan, to me, our current plan feels pretty well owned by our staff. So that's important, not to like take for granted that people to varying degrees feel connected and understand what we're trying to accomplish. I think now we want to get more ownership among our council and more ownership among stakeholders and partners and other, and tribal governments, frankly. So all in there. Thanks, Cord. We may spend like most of the time doing introductions, it seems like. So I'll just keep moving.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everybody. I'm Parasa Chanrami. I serve as a member of the council. And then outside of my role on the council, I'm also the legislative director for the Coalition of Oregon School Administrators. I'm familiar with our strategic planning work so far. And I was really interested in being more involved in a work group to dive in a bit deeper. And a few things that come to mind as I've been able to have the opportunity to participate in other strategic planning processes outside of YDO as well is just thinking about the need that we've seen, especially with the amount of applicants for the different grants that we've been able to organize and administer, and recognizing that there's a lot of areas where we want to continue to grow and expand that capacity. And another thing that has come up is our work around policy and advocacy as a potential area of growth as part of our scope of work. As well as members of the council in collaboration with YDO. So I'm excited to participate in this work group and learn more about how we can improve alignment across other partners where we have a lot of overlap in the youth we're serving. And also thinking about in our growth, doing that in a very intentional way and building a really strong coalition of support, in YDO, which is already strong, right? But YDO and everyone else. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I'm excited for this process.
Okay, my name's Andy Leonard. I know you guys know me. I've been here on the board, or Youth Development Council, for like 2017, I think. So I'm the 9 tribes representative for the state of Oregon. Also, I've been pretty busy lately, so I've been coaching. I coach basketball in November, December, January. I coach girls basketball from January to February. And right after, the week after, I'm at the high school coaching baseball at the Matters High School. So, and I'm continuously going and going and going. So I apologize. I've been doing that since November. So I've been really busy with games and being with kids, being with girls, then boys, and then back to boys again. So it's a blessing that I get to still coach. So right now I start playing this Sunday up in Vancouver, so my own league. So I get to play myself starting on Sunday, and World Series goes on in October. So I just pretty much I'm pretty new to the strategic plan. I've been in and out, so I get some of it, and then I kind of, I've been gone, so I'm trying to catch up. And with all this coaching and stuff and being involved with the school districts, I kind of hit and miss with the meetings too. So Kind of apologize for that. I haven't been able to go to the 9 Tribes meetings as well. I know Anya's been reporting our meetings there too, so I know somebody's getting the information anyway. So if I'm not able to make it, Anya usually covers for me. What I usually do when I get out of this is the applicants and the grants, the tribes that apply for these grants, give them the information and report to them, and kind of give them the information what we come up with. So it's really big for the 9 tribes to know what these grants are.
Great. Our next folks up are Marcella, Adrian, and then Juliet.
Hello, everyone. Andy, you're making us all look bad. My son's in football, and I'm like, this is enough. Anyways, my name is Maricela Ortega. I'm the YDC chair. I'm also the development manager at Latino Network. I participated somewhat in our last strategic plan, not a whole lot. I feel like I've definitely had my fair share of strategic planning though. So there's a lot of things I really like about strategic planning, surprisingly, but it's really just kind of getting rid of the lingo and all the extra fluff and down to like, this is what we are actually doing. This is where we see ourselves going. I think that that's really important, especially as we focus on youth and try to include their voices. It can often get lost in all the other things. And so, yeah, that's my focus here. That's my priority here, is just to, make sure, and I know all of you are doing this as well, make sure that we're including youth voice and lived experience as much as we can. And hopefully we'll get a couple of our youth involved in the strategic planning. So excited for that.
Hello, I'm Adrienne Livingston, and hello, I'm the Director of Anti-Sex Trafficking Initiatives with World Venture. And then I am a council member on the YDO, and then I'm saying and then a lot. I don't know. I'm just tired. Anyway, I'm on the Youth Council and the Justice Council. And I would say I don't have familiarity with the strategic planning work, so I'm excited about this. What I really hope to get out of this is I am thankful that this is coming off of, our meeting here in Portland, of just hearing all the different perspectives, the voices. I really enjoyed sitting around the grant table and trying to talk about that whole process. My background is I've been 25 years as being a funder. And, besides this work, I've been working with other foundations of saying, how can we help nonprofits share their story better? Because they know what they know as far as the work and how to do it. They just don't necessarily know the lingo and speaking to funders. And so I really appreciated sitting around that table and having the conversations with staff and other members. And that's something I would want to bring into this process. But then also, just as Maricela said, getting youth involved and making it beneficial for them so that they make sure that their voices, and we make sure that their voices are heard. Because I know, and I think this was brought up at some meeting, I'm not sure which, that it can be intimidating even as a new adult member coming in. What is it then like for a youth person coming in? What are all these acronyms? What do all these things mean? So I would really, for me, getting out of this process, taking everything that we've already done into consideration, and then how do we move that forward with every idea or et cetera that's come to the table? What have we done well? What do we need to improve? And have I participated in strategic planning work before? Yes. And it's been various styles. I've been a part of a style where we did more of the visioning with pictures, et cetera. And that actually was beneficial, where it was more of the visioning work. But I really enjoy, as Annalise said, I like getting down to what is our plan, because we don't know if we're successful if we don't have written down goals. And from there, I know, depending on who's working on those goals, there are different tasks associated with it. But I really like to see what are those outputs and outcomes that we want, knowing that that can be flexible. So.
Hi, everybody. I'm Juliet Mackin. I'm one of the co-presidents at NPC Research. We are a small research and evaluation company, and our based in Portland, but we do national work. And for YDO, we have provided support in a couple of different ways, but primarily through evaluation of the juvenile crime prevention evaluation for many years. And I did have the opportunity to attend the November meetings, so I did have some kind of participation as part of the strategic planning at that time and have looked at materials. We have done strategic planning in our organization to be able to prioritize, to kind of focus on how do we really achieve, set and achieve goals for ourselves, and try to hone in on what priorities we have. And I've also been part of strategic planning with a nonprofit organization that I volunteer with that has some locations in different parts of the country and focuses on community, so gang prevention and interventions with youth. So that process was really interesting also, to bring in lots of different voices and to be able to think about capacity and how to expand. And again, as all of you have been saying, kind of how do you focus on what you really want to do and want to accomplish, and how do you measure that? So from the evaluation perspective, I think one of the things that I can support or would like to support is this piece around helping develop measures or helping develop ideas for how we can see what YDO is accomplishing, or measuring that, or helping to identify ways that we can tell the story of the different grant programs and the impacts. Thank you.
I am Bethany Tramer. I am a director for the Oregon Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs. Still pretty new, started in February. So I'm excited to be joining in. I'm not real familiar with the strategic planning. I heard the presentation in the quarterly meeting and remember seeing versions of the previous iteration in this work, but I'm really looking forward to helping kind of share the voice of youth professionals and all the clubs that we work with as part of this process, particularly thinking through how that reflects in the strategies and practicality of the impact that we see on the ground being part of this real vision going forward. And generally in strategic planning, I just love seeing this like big picture vision come to strategies, action items that then get us towards this shared bigger picture. Generic, right? That's what we do. Strategic plan is make big and then do it. And I'm really sorry, I have to hop off to go join a club celebration now. So I look forward to watching the rest of the recording. And thanks, Cord.
Thanks. Oh, I was gonna say thanks, Bethany. Hi, Melissa Gallardo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the executive support for YDO, and I have various depths of familiarity with the strategic plan work so far. And I was flipping my responses around a little bit because I have participated in strategic planning in my whole like professional career before. Every place I've worked has done strategic plans, and I've been involved at various levels there as well. And my first answer to the best part is like actually just finalizing it and then putting it into action. That always feels really great when you've accomplished all that work together. But then reflecting on my experience with YDO strategic planning so far, I was here 3 years ago when we worked on the plan that we have now. Out of all the ones I've been involved with, it's the one that's actually like stayed living working document that we refer to and that we use. And as a staff, we've reflected on that a little bit and talked about how we can do that even more going forward and involving more people and making it really useful to everyone. And I will pass it to Diana. Thanks.
Hi all, sorry, I stepped out of another meeting and I'm in the middle of a place, so my Wi-Fi is bad, so my camera won't be on. But hi all, buenas tardes, Diana Rojas, she, her pronouns, and I am a council member. I started off literally like months after I graduated college, and I was just learning anything and everything related to like quote unquote real world, real life type thing. And then I feel like I've only learned about strategic planning through YDO, YDC. So I feel like I've been involved or like my feedback, but I feel like I haven't seen a full circle, like the actual plan maybe come to life. I know that there have been changes and such. And I've advocated or shared my perspective from like a youth perspective or youth who was in the system and who was impacted. But I would say that this is still very new to me, and it's still like intimidating, and just learning the entire process is still, it's complex.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Diana, and everybody. That was actually really helpful for me just to hear some of the things that folks hope to see or prioritize within the planning. And that's what I hope we can talk about for the rest of our time together here is just, starting down that path of building the plan and prioritizing what we've got generated so far. Melissa, can we jump back to the slides? And I'll say quickly for folks who have not looked at what we've got from our retreat or haven't seen our past strategic plan, there is a slide. We won't spend much time on it, but I've put some links in the slide deck to the slide right after this one with the goals. I just thought it would be useful to have links in the deck so you can go and see the template that the governor's office has put forward for agencies to use. Really just what are the requirements of strategic plans from the governor's office. So that's just something that I'm referring to as I think about what we need to get done. The summary of our retreat back in November is going to be one of the things that we'll use to just take the ideas there and begin to identify priorities to build our plan strategies from. The 2021 strategic plan is linked here as well. One thing that we might, I think, talk about in a future discussion is the mission, vision, and values that we established in that plan. As of right now, those are still our mission, vision, and values. But it does seem like at some point when we talk about the goals of this work group, we do need to kind of come back and look at those and just make sure that they still feel like the right things, the right language, and of course make sure that what we're doing then reflects the mission, vision, and values as well. So that's kind of a good reference for where we've been. And then the Equity Lens Toolkit here is linked as well. This is something we've developed and we intend to use just to kind of help guide our work on strategic planning. So if we could jump back to the prior slide. Yeah. This is just a list of the things that we hope to accomplish with the work group. The initial work is just to start to make sense of what we've got so far of the, from our retreat. One of the things that the governor's office has asked agencies to do is a PESTLE analysis, which is really sort of an external analysis. That is something that we'll probably look at doing later on with the work group as well. Looking at the updated and possibly updating mission, vision, and values. Developing some initial actions and strategies to include in our plan and creating a first draft. The work group is not necessarily going to say, here, council, here is the plan, take a vote. But the goal is to have a place where we can do the work and then bring things to the council for the council to consider and have opportunities to look at, provide input on, and ultimately the council is going to adopt the final plan. Our hope is to have adoption in December. So that's kind of the rough timeline. We do want to also do some community engagement and tribal consultation around the plan. Probably late summer and early fall is what we're looking at. Once we've got a draft, we want to share that. And so we'll be also hoping to get some input from members of the council and stakeholders and how we can effectively bring this to community and get their take and get their input. And then, ideally, you're able to participate, as much as you can. And we want to try to make this meaningful and be a place where we can get work done and actually build this plan. Any thoughts or questions on the goals, or anything that you would also want to make sure that we just keep an eye on and accomplish within the work group? It's only 7 things that are massive and huge, no big deal.
Hey, Cord, I'll just say quickly, I think Melissa's going to try to drop those links into the
Okay,
chat,
thank you.
just so that folks, if you need a easier reference until, or you have the PowerPoint is linked, so you can probably just pull them out of there. So if that's helpful, let it be known. And I'll just maybe just quickest of context, perhaps for some, because we have a few new people. In the fall and late November, we had a gathering of our staff and council into a planning retreat, and we spent, oh goodness, it was over the course of 2 days. It was probably 5 or 6 hours each day, both just kind of building connection and relationship and figuring out kind of what folks were, what they were bringing to the table, but also then in some conversation about just a whole host of ideas that then were narrowed down into the list that I think Cord is going to have, sort of priorities, for lack of a better word, that Cord is going to share with us now. So some of you missed that, not just because, I don't know, maybe we weren't on board, or we were just trying to get out the gate. So that's just the quick context for that retreat that happened last fall.
Thank you, Brian. Melissa, do you mind jumping, I think, 2 slides up now? We don't need the resources again. So what I hope to kind of get input from folks on and have a discussion about is actually like how we take, I'm going to drop a link in the chat here, how we take the pretty expansive list of ideas that we came up with at that retreat and start to make sense of it and identify like where do we begin in this work and what are our priorities. This came up at the end of the discussion in the last council meeting. I believe it was Zan who kind of said, the next step from her perspective was looking at, what are sort of the things that have sort of a shorter time horizon. What can we do fastest, and what is feasible or infeasible, and to start to look at things that way. And I thought that was interesting. And then, we thought about it, and I think you could prioritize it a few different ways. And I don't know that there is a right one to begin with. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of get folks' takes on how you would recommend that we start to look at it. I think that, another way that we might look at it is what's going to have the biggest impact. I think the equity framework is also a way that we could look at it, asking those questions. Does that lead us to start in a different place than we might otherwise? And the document that's linked is pretty long, and if folks haven't seen it before, I think just seeing how long it is gives you an idea of what this work looks like. But so I just kind of wanted to open this up for a conversation. How would you begin to prioritize what we've got so far? Is it important to you that we have like a, first 100 days, get out the gate fast kind of start? Are we ranking things in terms of their impact? Are we thinking about viability and practicality first and foremost? If we apply an equity framework, what might that elevate in terms of priorities? And then I'm going to just open it up. I am going to also just grab the list of, there's categories of work that we've identified in this, and I'll drop those in the chat just so that part is easy to just go and quickly look at. It's kind of the briefest summary of what we have in terms of the bodies of work in this plan. But yeah, so that's it. If we're prioritizing, where do we begin in looking at all these ideas we've generated?
I can start. thinking about all the things we discussed at our retreat, there's so many things, and there's always going to be such a big need. I think I initially thought impact was where I would start, but now I'm kind of thinking like looking at our large list, who out of our partners or other state entities are already doing that work, and where is the biggest need? That's kind of the approach that I would take. And just figuring out like where those holes are, because I feel like that's what we do here on, it's not YDO. Oh, yes, Youth Development of Oregon. Yeah, it is YDO. Yeah, so I think figuring out where those holes are and where we can make the most impact is important.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? I mean, based on your observations and work so far, are there maybe one or two areas where you see us uniquely able to have an impact that maybe is not being, or a gap that's not being filled by other agencies? Is there anything that jumps out to you when you think about that?
I would say like the main thing that jumps out is the juvenile justice work that we do. I think that we play a big role there in terms of like providing services that youth otherwise would not have. And I know that's true for several other areas, but just being on the juvenile justice subcommittee, that's kind of where my focus has been.
Thank you.
It looks like
Oh, wait,
Andy
and-
was, oh, Andy, were you about to share something?
Can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying that I think it's for the tribes, I think it's time. Mostly because a lot of it has to do with a lot of grants that each tribe has. So it's really I would think the time and then the impact what it takes on each tribe, depending on what the population, what each tribe needs, I think. So I think that's my idea, coming from the 9 tribes, I think. Still got to learn more though. I got to get back into the mix again.
Hey, Andy, can I ask you a follow-up? Just so by time, you mean what will happen, what things can happen the fastest?
I think me getting out to, because we have quarterly meetings like we do regularly, like we do with this group here. I would think because it's hard to get everybody together. I think that's the time thing, the time process, or even getting information out and see if everybody reacts to it. That's what I think time is.
To build off of what Andy and Maricela were sharing, as I was looking at the viability and practicality, I was thinking about capacity, both capacity of staff, capacity of the council, and then our different partners, and then grantees, and thinking about that and everyone's sphere of influence, right? And the other thing that I was thinking about was the political viability of certain ideas and efforts and the timing of that, whether or not there's momentum. Let's say, for example, if something needs to be funded by the legislature, or if it's a new initiative, right? That takes time to build sort of a coalition of support. So you're just keeping those time horizons in mind, and the political process as well, impacting that. And then the other thought I had was, in looking at the point on the equity framework, I wonder if there's also ways we can build our different equity lens questions throughout each of the components. So it's not a separate thing, but it also, or it could be a separate thing and also embedded in the questions around time, impact, viability, and practicality. So I think there's some coherence we can build there as well. So that's something that has come up for me in thinking about how do we narrow down our focus as well.
So I'll say now what I'm imagining as kind of the next step, and what I will try to maybe bring to refine with the work group when we come back together in a couple of weeks, which is my thought is that we want to try to design some form of a survey that would allow everyone from council and everyone participating to do some sorting or some prioritization. And I'm kind of, I think that what I worried is probably true is that these are all valid ways to prioritize, and there may not be one correct place to start. Hey, TBD, thank you for joining us. And so I feel like maybe what needs to be developed and what I can draft and then get feedback on is some kind of frame where it's, if you're looking at it this way, what are the things that would sort of you would put first? And if you look at it, you know, through viability, what seems to be the most viable or the least viable? You know, and then find some way of also crosswalking that with the equity questions. I mean, I feel like there's like a lot of thinking to do on this. It's not as simple as just sort of saying it and it exists. But that's kind of what I'm imagining, is trying to give folks an opportunity to look at this set of ideas through each of these things, and to then see, are there things that emerge each time you prioritize, that sort of jump out each time you look at it? Are there things that kind of rise to the top? And maybe that kind of helps us to say, well, these are the building blocks. These are things that no matter which set of lens you use, these are priorities. I hope those things exist. I feel like among all of this stuff, there should be some things like that could be keystones. And I think the one thing I'll add is that if you look at our old strategic plan, we didn't edit it very well, to be honest. To be, you know, a bit self-critical, it's like all in there now. Maybe not all. There was like 27 pages, and they got it down to like 10. And one of the things that Brian and I talked about early on, and we were starting on this, is like we don't want this to be as dense and as long and hard to work with. So there is kind of a desire to we've done a lot of adding, and we need to do some subtracting, or at least some ordering of things so that we can have a good place to start. So there is a goal of like just trying to really find stuff that we can rally around and not have something quite as big of a beast as, you know, the plan that we had in 2021. And that seems like folks are like that sort of feels like that is probably a good next step. I'm gonna pause. So Tabidi, I'm glad you joined us. We spent some time doing introductions, and I've shared a little bit about the work group. I think, Melissa, if you might, I'm not sure the slide deck. Yeah, if you want to share the slides in the chat, you can maybe check out what we've already talked about. We are also recording the meeting, so if you want to go back and see what we've talked about already, you can. But maybe if you would, I'll ask you just to kind of quickly introduce yourself. And the questions we had are, How familiar are you with our strategic plan work so far? And have you, what do you hope to contribute or get out of being a part of the work group?
Okay, good morning. My name is Thabiti Lewis, and well, everyone knows who I am. I'm assuming, right? I mean, I don't see any new faces. I've been on the council for a number of years. I am familiar with the strategic plan. I was part of the 2 processes thus far. This will be the 3rd. And what do I hope to get out of it? I'm hoping to personally refine my skills in such a process, but also I'm hoping that we, refine it such that we really make a significant, impact, right? That is equitable, that's really thoughtful, and that we can, look at if there are areas where we either had too much or we have some omissions. And so, yeah, and the best part has been, I think, just I think it's been very process oriented in the past and very open to people's contribution to the ideas. And yes, I would like to receive the recording of the meeting so I can go back and push through it, because I do have to leave in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to pop in to make certain that that people know this is something I want to be part of.
Well, thank you, Tabiti. Well, I think Brian and I have to go to a meeting with the governor's office at 1 o'clock, so we should probably also finish on time. So I'm gonna maybe ask a question I think of Brian. So right now, and we've initially planned to come back together on May 1. I'm going to be out all of next week and all the week following until May 1st. And so my ability to generate something meaningful prior to our next meeting, if it is on May 1, is something I worry about. In order to not sort of have something that is too half-baked. And so I wonder whether it would be wise to actually look at meeting the week following, if that is something we can do, or we're not locked into that, in order to, what I'd like to try to bring back to the work group is some proposal for how we would begin to work through prioritization, and something that we could test out and then share out, essentially a survey of sorts that we could share with the rest of council who aren't able to join in the work group meeting, but to basically look at a tool for that and refine it. If I have to get it done for May 1, I can get it done. I don't want to say I can't do it, but I'm just wondering whether, what our flexibility is around that. And so I want to get your thoughts, Brian, because I'm thinking that's the next step. Probably the next way to get moving.
Thanks, Cordia, and I appreciate our, willingness or desire to kind of get you all moving. Like, this is step 1 of several. So just, I see people's kind of just listening, and hopefully their brains are working. I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to keep a May 1st meeting, but maybe we can relieve the pressure on whether or not we have a survey ready. Maybe that we can spend that time doing a little bit more thinking. For example, a question, or it's a thought I have, but I'm going to ask it as a question for those who've done strategic planning and been a part of processes. Like, I look at this list of the categories, and there's a link in the chat for all the thinking beneath that. So don't on the one hand, you could see the list and go if I just looked at the list, if I was brand new, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of overlap between these things. So what's the difference between youth engagement and youth needs, and but the devil's in the details. So you got to look, and perhaps folks can spend a little time, but a question, and I don't know, I think we want to wrestle with, and maybe it's in this space, maybe it's in the next meeting, is are we trying to say, hey, let's pick 2 or 3 of these, and guess what? We can't do everything. Or is it, let's pick a couple of things within each of these categories, and that's where we're going to prioritize. I kind of think it's more the latter than the former, because these big categories all seem really important. And that's okay. I'm not, but for those who are a little bit more experienced, or just like coming to this and going, okay, YDO, like, you know, what do y'all think? And I know it's only 4 minutes left, but I think the assignment for us is less about trying to reduce this list, because Cord, all the thinking is good, but more about picking things within those categories, or prioritizing the things. But it's I don't know, feels like an important, like we're at a crossroads, like, because we could also say, you know what, collaboration, grant programs, evaluation, and impact. We're going to focus on those 3 things for the next 2 or 3 years. Hey, love youth engagement, love council roles, but less important. What do y'all, how the strategic planners among us, what are your quick thoughts? Or maybe tell me your thoughts, but it's also maybe a conversation we could dive into on May 1st.
Annalise has her hand raised.
Yeah, and I love that question, Brian, because one of the things that's running through my head here is these categories seem like strategies, right? As opposed to like, and I don't know enough. I was trying to get through the strategic plan. Do we need to narrow down the goals and then figure out what the top strategies are for those goals? And then I'll just say, as your agency partner, we always have this struggle, right? Like, do we pick one thing that all of us are going to align to, right? Hopefully, yes. And then how do we fit in what each one does best? It's really hard to do. Especially if there's 100 goals we're marching towards and not 4 or 3.
Thank you both. I think that's maybe the next piece of follow-up is we'll rephrase or refine that question into something that we can maybe share out as a follow-up to this. And we'll keep it to May 1. Sorry, I was just trying to go by some time, but I do think we can just have more dialogue on May 1, and that will help refine what we might need to develop for folks to give us input. With that, I really appreciate everyone making time, spending this hour together. Thank you for your thought, for your input. If you have questions, if you are looking at the documents and have questions, please feel free to reach out to Brian or I. We look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Cord.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Melissa.